Alright. And you guys can start now.
Okay. Um,
Want me to go first? Or you?
I mean, you can go first one, too, yeah.
Alright, so one sec. Alright, look in scans chat. It just outright calls. Fuck. It just outright calls Rocks Roger's strongest enemy. So he'd be stronger than Garp.
Let me see. I'm using the Sengoku one, or that's what I would say. Yeah, do you think it's not referring to the fact that it's most difficult?
What do you mean most difficult?
For example, the reason why Rocks was had a basically a run in his career is because he had the strongest crew like literally ever assembled. Like even the current day, like only Big Bombs and Kaido's Alliance ever topped that shit. It's not like some 1v1 shit.
Do you think when they call him the strongest enemy, they're referring to his crew?
Yeah. Because even the betrayal, even in flashback, like they're like, oh, let's get Kaido, we're gonna be unstoppable, all that shit.
I mean, okay, so obviously that can be the case. I do agree that at the time of God Valley, they did have like the strongest crew, but at the same time, that doesn't make as much sense with context. And also, when you look at the broader scope of how One Piece uses the term of strongest, for one, Roger, especially now that we have the flashback, he's not depicted as really going up against the entire crew. Obviously, the main, he's not like going up against Shiki and Silver Axe and all these people. That's mainly his other crew and whatnot. Additionally, like usually when you see these strongest titles or the term strongest used in One Piece, it won't refer to one's totality as in like the people that are behind them.
Wait,
like
I'm confused. You said that Roger wasn't shown fighting the whole crews, but I think he was. Like he's shown scrapping with Whitebeard. His other people were scrapping with those pirates. I think that is what's shown. I think Roger does actually fight the whole crew.
Well, he's shown fighting Whitebeard, but other than that, the only other fight he's technically at this point was Eva. He hasn't fought anyone else.
Yeah, that's I'm saying that builds enough credibility, especially with his other people fighting the Rocks pirates to suggest that they just did do crew battles.
Wait,
I'm saying that's the evidence right there. That's what we already have that. It's already proven.
Wait, why would fighting one of his crew members be credibility to reference?
The claim was you don't think crew battles are suggested. I'm saying, well, if that's the case, like obviously the following from there, you think this Roger just fought Rocks, like, but that's just not shown. Like what's actually shown is that it's like all out war battles, like, and they're just fighting whoever he did to fight whoever it is.
I never said that Roger only fought Rocks. I'm just saying that it's not depicted as Roger fighting like each of the crew, right? Fighting one member of the crew does not suggest.
Do you not think that God Valley showcased that when these different fractions come together, right? Anybody you want to attack at, who you're going to throw your hands at. But do you not think that showcases that?
Yeah, I think it showcased that they choose their battles and whatnot. People of all the factions are fighting.
Then I'm confused on why you don't think that directly proves it's crew to crew.
I'm not saying, okay, again, the whole point is I'm not saying that the battle in general is like crew to crew and that people are specifically targeting one person, even though it is implied that out of everyone, Roger and Rocks are the main people that are antagonistic towards each other. Roger, my bad. Roger never displays the same like animosity and want to go fight Rocks compared to Whitebeard. Like he only compares wanting to fight Rocks and rather not Whitebeard. Just because it is a crew and crew battle does not depict that Roger's enemy himself is the crew, right? His crew's enemy is Rock's crew, but Roger's main enemy is Rocks.
But I understand that, but you still have to agree. There's some underlying agreement that they're still working together and they're gonna have to fight for each other's cause. That's the whole point of like Rox's crew. Like he beats them and they back fights and recruits them, and they're just forced to follow him. So yes, if someone's coming to attack Rox and Rox clearly wants to defend himself, they're going to step in as well. And that's literally what's shown. Like when Rox wants to do his shit, they're defending his land and stuff. Like I really just don't get the argument.
Yeah, my argument again, right, is that is contextualized to being Roger's strongest enemy, and Roger's impact on God Valley is mainly contextualized to wanting to go fight Rocks. Granted, we see him fighting Whitebeard a bit, but at the same time, that's not his main goal. And at the same time, it isn't context. If your whole narrative of like this crew and crew thing, right, would make more sense maybe if the statement said it's the Roger Pirates' strongest enemy, if it was in context to crew, right?
Well,
Because it's not
that's
saying it's
inherent from
Roger.
the name. That's inherent from the name. When you say Luffy, you think of Straw Hat Luffy, you think of Straw Hat Pirates. That's automatically be entitled to the
Um,
name. That's
No,
not an argument.
Jin, I don't see any reason why, if we're referencing something, a quality about an individual, we would assume that it's referencing the entire faction that they belong to. I don't see
Well,
a reason.
bro. When has it ever been shown that these guys are like fucking yard like islands away from the crews? Never. The only time that kind of happened was when the Straw Hats disbanded for a whole training arc. Besides that, they're always on the
Okay,
island either all this together.
okay, yeah, they fight together. First off, they usually fight in one-on-one battles, especially when you look at Luffy. And
Exactly,
second
crew
off,
versus
that doesn't
crew. That's
mean
proving my point more. All they do is just the Straw Hats, for example. They go like to see like to the Buggy shit, invade his land. They beat up his whole entire crew.
yes, I understand that, but I'm
Oh, okay,
saying
so
that
the entire Berserk One Piece is crew versus crew battles. And so
one
if I
second.
make the argument right
It's
now that when you say Luffy, you think the Straw Hat Pirates because they're really connected and they're all together, I'm not getting the argument here.
okay.
It's
I
too
get that it's
consistent.
wait a minute, let me finish. I get it, it's a crew and crew battle, right? But within that crew and crew battle, it's contextualized to specific one-on-one matchups. For example, the captains will typically fight the captains or leaders of each other's squad. So in a statement that doesn't contextualize Roger's entire crew, right? Because as I said, there's no reason to believe that a statement about an individual like Roger would be referencing his entire crew. When it says Roger's strongest enemy, and we know that the battles like God Valley, which is supported by him antagonizing Rocks in specific, he'll usually have a one-on-one battle with the leader of said crew, which is Rocks, then it would make more sense as referring to Rocks in his individuality
Yeah,
rather
I
than
know
the
the argument.
totality
I'm
of his
telling you, that's
crew.
what's shown not to be the case in One Piece, and it gets recontextualized. So look, not only do we see it all the time in crew battle, and I can tell you times when Luffy has fought people who weren't the main boss midway through the arc, and still went on to fight the main boss. He doesn't in Wano where he fights a Pooh and them before he goes to the rooftop to fight Karo and Big Mom. He doesn't during the Water 7 where he has to fight Bluno before he makes his way to Lucci. This is not a crazy concept. This has always been the case. So I've already made the argument that look, yes, even in the flashback, what's being portrayed is crew versus crew battles. Roger is fighting his way up to his goal, just like how Luffy does it, and all these other pirates do it all the time. It's always being portrayed in the story. I don't think you have a consistency to make an argument. I don't.
Yeah, it's like I don't get why the fact that they don't always fight, because I mentioned this earlier, right? The fact that they don't always like begin by fighting the leader of said crew doesn't mean that statements that reference the
Just give
like
me an example,
Roger.
bro. Give me any
One sec.
example. Name an example where people
Can you please
do
let me
do just do
finish?
start off only leader versus leader, nothing else. Like where's that ever happened? Because the only time I think people get secluded 1v1s is when like a Kanu and fucking a Kuzan. Like that shit has never happened for real. Like
What
Big
do you
Mom
mean?
pulled up the Kaido do that shit. I'm saying secluded 1v1s don't really happen like that. It's always crew. Like the entire time One Piece when secluded battles happen is when like the
Wait,
stakes
I'm
are
not
really high.
again. Wait, hold up. My argument isn't that it's not like a war of crews. My argument is that within that war of crews, the primary contest, right, the main fight that the leaders will have is between each other. Granted, Luffy can go and fucking low diff Blueno before he does that, but the primary fight, the one that actually holds much credence to it at all, that isn't against someone fodder and not relevant, would be the leaders fight. It would be versus, in this case, Roger versus Rocks, not Roger clashing once with Whitebeard and then going to fight Rocks.
Yeah, I still just think that could be true. That could be true, but my argument follows. Like, is this going to be the case that obviously the climactic fight is going to be leader versus leader, but we're still going to be granted based on how the interpretation One Piece portrays the story is that these crew battles are also being taken into account because their crews are synonymous with their names, and because of that, everybody knows it's going to be some type of these pirates versus these pirates. Um, and we can go into my scaling if that's all you have.
Well, I
Um,
can give. Well, you can conclude on there for now, but I'll also
mhm.
Wait,
give
y'all
like.
are concluding on the scaling?
No, I'm just concluding on like the whole like idea of like the strongest enemy. What I was trying to tell him that like typically the fights are referring to like They don't refer to like the crew and crews.
This
But, like
subpoint
I can give
specifically.
Isaac. Let me not. I want to give Jin like another argument for this because Jin, like traditionally when you see titles
Okay.
about yeah, one sec, Jin. When you see like titles about people being the strongest, it's not contextualized to their crew. So like there's
Yeah, I don't think Rock has
if
enough
that's
titles.
if that's the case, right? Or no, like, what I mean titles is like when someone is referred to as being the strongest X, right? There's less of a precedent for them like being referenced to their totality rather than being referenced to their crew. And in fact, when it is referenced to their crew, typically it will be noted.
Yeah,
For
I'm
example,
saying it is
Whitebeard
noted.
and
Listen, Lucas. I already I know I need the argument. I'm saying that I'm already disagreeing with Rox's quote unquote title the way you're trying to list it being in a similar light as like Whitebeards or Mihawks. I'm saying the story already directly portrays it being about the crew because every time Rox is talked about, it's literally about his infamous crew and how powerful it was, right? Like we can even go back to the propaganda chapter where Sengoku said, like they literally say, oh yeah, Rock was the strongest enemy, and they go on after this to show his crew and how dangerous it was. Like it was so strong, right, that Roger and Garp had to team up, right? The point was to highlight the crew. That's why he was so dangerous. That's why
okay,
his first adversary was so strong because the crew, the things he fought at that point in time was quote unquote too much for him.
okay. The problem is that your argument has no like founding. Like, yeah, they do glaze his crew, okay, but at the same time, they never contextualize him being the strongest Roger enemy to that. At the same time, right? There's a lot of glaze on Rox's own combat power. They glaze how someone is so strong enough to keep those Yonkos in line, and even during the Rox flashback, they glaze a lot about his feats, from killing an admiral to clashing with Harold, a king of Elbaf, and all this stuff. So Rox himself does individually have a lot of glaze. There's no way that they like specifically contextualize his title as being distinct from other individual titles, as they say titles or some shit. So your argument kind of falls because it would require some verbiage within the like the phrasing of when they call him the strongest what's it called enemy to specifically only index to his crew. But even though they glaze his crew, they still glaze his
That doesn't make
individuality.
sense. Like we can just break this down here, right? Let's literally talk about the propaganda. Let's talk about the propaganda example, right? Because the propaganda example makes this more clear. So let's say this, right? Roger is his first foe, perhaps his greatest. Okay, that means 1v1. Roger is what weaker than Rocks, right? Garp should be
Yeah,
around his level, correct? Okay,
yeah.
that means 1v2. They somewhat win, whatever we're gonna say. Think about this now. If we already know based on the real flashback, Roger is already around Whitebeard's level, and this is the propaganda where they did 2v4. Why do you think it's not referring to the crews? Mind you, they won the 2v4, and they're already equal to people here. That makes no sense, Lucas.
Wait, they never
Obviously,
wait.
it's referring to the reason why he struggles so hard is because the crew is fucking hard, bro.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, so are you trying to say that because like the little like flash on Sengoku's head there, because it looks like a 2v4, that's actually okay, first off, right? First off, just because even if we assume that there's a 2v4 there, which I don't know why we're gonna assume that that's like
I'm
actually what
not saying there
happened.
was. I'm saying that 2v4 thing is propaganda. Like that's literally just the story the Marines tell. That's not actually what happened because we're getting a flashback right now.
No,
What I'm
right.
saying, but what I am saying, right, is that when the story of One Piece actually portrays this to you, right, and they say Rock is his greatest foe. If portraying it in this way, they're telling us it just can't be Rock's strong 1v1 because they're saying the 2v4. Like it just
Wait,
can't be.
Goku never. Wait, Sengoku. Okay, but Sengoku never mentions it was a 2v4. When does he mention it's a 2v4?
Oh my god, you can literally see Garp
Yeah,
joined forces with Roger, Darth Yalin, and they broke apart the Rocks Pirates. Rocks Pirates, right? Pirates. And then in the silhouette, you see
he never.
Roger and Garp,
Yeah,
and then side by side,
okay.
facing the literal pirates of the crew.
Okay, listen. So he said what Sengoku himself says, right? The propaganda is that it's Garp and Roger versus Rock's Pirates. He never contextualizes it to
Yeah,
like
and yes,
Garp
and the
and Roger.
Rocks
Wait,
Pirates are like people
let me
like
finish.
Big
Let me finish. Let
Mom,
me finish. Let me
Kaido,
finish.
Roger,
Holy shit! I can't
Whitebeard.
fucking
That's
speak,
shown
bro.
there.
Let
So
me
they beat
finish.
them
One
all
sec.
up.
One sec. Let me finish, bro. I didn't like I barely even got my argument across. My point is that what we see, the visualization there, is not what Sengoku says. Just because it was Rocks and Rock, I mean not Rock, just because it was Roger and Garp versus Rock's Pirates, that doesn't detail the matchups, right? It doesn't mean that Roger and Garp specifically fought Rocks, Kaido, Whitebeard, and Big Mom at the same time. It just means in general, Roger and Garp fought against the Rocks Pirates.
Yes.
He doesn't actually mention anything about how the matchups were.
Yes, and I'm saying that regardless, you can literally see how Oda directly symbolizes the fight. You can like that's what the picture are there for to give us more context. So
One
basically, what
second,
happened is Roger and Garp pulled up next to each other, and we literally see that there's four people standing side by side. They just still won. So that was a 42. Maybe when the argument group came in later on, and they still held their own, sure. But again, the propaganda is still going to showcase that these guys fucking ran a gauntlet and won. So if that's being stated, when they say greatest, it's going to be referring to his crew. Because every time Rock's ever talked about, it's because of his crew. It's never like him by himself. None of that shit. It's always his crew.
1 second. I'm getting some scans. Okay, so first off, right, there's 2 points here I want to make. First off, with the first scan, Sengoku specifically contextualizes him, like he names after he's before, in fact, he says the whole like strongest crew, I mean strongest foe thing. He mentions how they have the strongest crew in the world. So the whole hype and the glaze about his crew is being separated distinctly from later on when he calls him his strongest foe. Second off, you make the point that their crew is glazed, and I understand that, but at the same time, his individual character is glazed too when they mention how one guy was able to lead all of these strong ass people in the first place, right? So if one guy is still mentioned, they still glaze how in the first place these guys were led under rocks, right? And how strong rocks has to be to keep these guys in line, then it's not just his crew being glazed. At the same time as his crew's being glazed, underliningly, they glazed him for keeping that crew together and being their captain. And at the same time, if Sengoku distinctly notes how they had the strongest crew and separates it from when he says the whole like strongest enemy shit, then it makes no sense for those two
No,
be
because look,
chronological
that's
together.
again, that's
If they're-
again. I
if-
already proved this. Yes, I already proved how when you are going to say the pirate's name, it's going to be in reference to what crew they're on at the time. I already showed this with Luffy and all this stuff. Even with rocks, when you bring up him, you bring up his crew. Like again,
Wait,
so
wait.
when we say they're saying, oh, he has to be strong too because he keeps people in check. That's fine. That can be granted. The story already showcases that he does day back fights, and they have to follow him because of this. But because the importance of day back fights, to where it's the whole importance of the shit is that, oh, you beat them, you take their will and shit, they have to follow you no matter what until the journey's done. Obviously, that's going to have a direct implication. Okay, so if that's gonna be that they follow him, they protect his will, they do what he wants, all that shit, etc., etc. That is going to imply that they do this shit to protect this stuff. They fight, they do all this stuff. It's not 1v1, bro. It's not 1v1. It's not. It never
Okay,
is.
I don't really see, especially because again, like first off, you never actually proved why referring to one's name refers to their crew. Like how saying that rock glazing something about rocks in specific would glaze their crew. That you
Give
never
me an
proved
example in
that.
One Piece, bro. Give me an example in One Piece. Good.
I'm asking you to prove that people
Now
when
I
they
gave you multiple examples. I said rocks, pirates. Roger, you talking about the Roger pirates, like Rayleigh. Oh my God, the Dark King. He was the left hand of the pirate king. Gaban's gonna be no right handed. Gaban's in left hand. Etc. Etc.
Wait, that doesn't
Marco,
wait, none of those
first commander of Whitebeard pirates. Like how I'm saying, like
none of those
name,
examples mean that they're glazing the crew in their
bro.
totality.
They say their name. They say their name, and then after their name, they talk about the position of power and where they are in the crew. It's synonymous with each other.
Wait, that's different from
That's
some
not
state.
different. It's not
Wait,
different. It
can
goes
you let
hand
me
in hand. That's
finish?
the
Can you
entire
let me
point.
finish, please?
Okay.
Good grief, man. Like I'm just okay. That's different from something glazing about one person in particular actually being because the whole point, right, is that you don't actually think Rox is the strongest, you think his crew is the strongest. So there's not actual glaze about Rox individually rather than his totality. So for example, you can't bring up examples of like, oh, Rayleigh, Rayleigh's a Dark King and Marco is the number one in the White Beard, whatever the fuck, right? Because none of these are actually referring to the crew being strong. They're talking about Marco in specific. Like when Marco comes to Wano, they're like, "Yo, you're the first commander of the White Beard Pirates. I'm worried, despite him being there alone." These are reference to them individually. This only strengthens my point that in the mentioning a name on itself, along with the other
Bro,
examples that mention how
I'm
they
confused on
strongest
how you
crew.
think that serves your point. That shows my point that when they say their name, that's going to be in reference to them responding to the crew. Like there's
No,
never been a time when a pirate's been brought up to where their crew is not brought up in its synonymous meaning as well. Never.
I don't think. Okay, listen. I don't. Let me just repeat it again. I don't think you're understanding. When I say like referencing to their careers, right? Sure. Like let's bring up Marco as an example. Marco, they can mention his name, and then they can mention the fact that he was like the first commander, right? That is obviously like conjoined with his crew, but it's not in the sense that what they glaze Marco for is only what they glaze the Whitebeard pirates for. They glaze Marco's strength in Wano separate from the Whitebeard pirates' strength. Just because he's the first commander of the Whitebeard pirates doesn't mean that they're saying that what we're talking about Marco doesn't apply to him on his lonesome. It only applies to the entire crew.
No,
Him
no
being the
one,
first
no,
commander.
bro, you're lost. You're lost. No one is saying that commander titles don't hold in effect. What we're telling you is that despite these titles, what's followed from every example when it comes to pirates, no matter what, is that they are also going to be referenced by what pirate crew they are in. So if that is the case, the crew name is going to be synonymous with the name. So yes, when we talk about rocks, you are also inherently talking about the crew, and vice versa.
Wait, that's not synonymous because it's still referencing, like, for example, in this case, combat power that's individualistic. So
Oh my god.
it's not really going to it's not synonymous in the sense that what they're glazing one person of the crew for is what they're glazing the entirety of the crew for, that they're equal, right?
You want to move on?
They're glazing this individual member for something, and then they're just noting the fact that he was like a big shot on this crew that
You
had
want to move
strong
on?
people.
You want to
Okay,
move
we
on? Like that's really attacking.
Yeah, Jen, I want clarification on one point. The other ones I thought you won pretty easily. Just the only thing that like I'm mixed up on right now is how is the like inductive claim that Lucas made? How was that addressed?
Yeah, it's just going to be the case that given that the pirate name is always talked about in correspondence, him saying it's going to be individualistic is it's not going to be an addressal. Like someone can clarify in one sense, like he's a human living in this building, but when we're still talking about the building itself, like it's really not an argument.
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that? What do you mean?
I'm purely talking about like anyone can be talked about on an individual level. What's still going to be the case is that regardless, it's going to boil back down to we're talking about the pirate crew itself, and because of this, where every time a Rox is talked about, it's always intended to his crew. When it says he's the greatest, that's not going to go. That's not going to actually address the claim. That's literally just going to go back in circles to where that still was already put into question. And like he was considered the greatest because his crew was most dangerous. He's never talked about individually, bro. He never is.
Wait, Jen, the way that I see it is I think that you did show consistency of it referring to his crew or whatever. Like you brought up the fact that like I think that there was a panel, if I heard correctly, because I was like, I wasn't taking notes. You brought up a panel that, oh, okay, we have this. Wait, what is Mortified pinging me with? Let me see. Yeah, I'm not gonna worry about that for now. Okay. Where it's like Roger, Garp, and then somebody else, I forgot, versus the Rocks Pirates. So that kind of like gives him inverse contextualization to it. But the whole point is that if it refers to both, then that supports Lucas's point. Because if it refers to the fact that, okay, he's the strongest individually and he has the strongest crew. Like, let's say that both y'all get your points across. That's still going to favor Lucas's position because that's all he needs to substantiate his claim. You get what I mean?
Yeah, but like that's the whole entire point. Like I demonstrated it being crew battles too. Like he has no argument, even in like the real contextual version of the story. And I'm saying because
No,
crew
no,
battles are
no. I'm not
consistently
referring
shown.
to the crew battles thing. I think you won that point. I'm
I
referring
know.
to.
I'm saying because of that. Then that means that context already embedded. Like he's not addressing that.
Wait, Mortified said that Jin
Like that's
isn't.
currently already embedded. So when he's saying this thing's the case, that's literally his question begging. Like it's
Wait,
already
hold on,
embedded.
hold on, hold
He's
on.
just attacking air.
Wait,
Oh,
Jin.
okay. Well, wait. So you're saying you put the whole induction thing into
Yeah,
question?
like I already proved each thing was wrong, bro. Like he's literally just question begging, bro.
Wait, hold on,
No,
hold on,
you
hold on, hold
didn't.
on.
Wait,
I
Jin.
did.
And I
Okay,
just
wait.
I
asked
know.
you.
I didn't hear this part.
I already listed a
Dude, I
consistency of
literally
crew
mentioned
battles.
examples of people being
Wait,
glazed
wait,
for
one at a
individual.
time.
Hey,
I
Wait,
already
guys,
listed an
hold on,
example of
guys,
crew
hold
battles
calm
on,
being
down.
guys,
Wait,
shown in the
hold
Rock
on,
Pirates.
hold on, guys.
Never addressed it.
one at a time. One at a time. I
I
just
was
want to
gonna
ask
say
Jen how he
say
proved
one
it.
thing. I was gonna say one thing. I was gonna say one thing.
Wait,
Isaac.
dude, Jen was talking. Wait, Lucas
No,
interrupted
no,
Jen.
hold on, hold on.
Okay.
It's one little sentence,
Yeah,
bro.
okay.
Mortified, Ping Jun said Jin isn't addressing Lucas
Oh, he
saying that
knows,
Ross
bro. He knows. He knows. He said he's
is trying
ignoring
to
it,
increase
bro. Shut
strength or
up.
something.
You know.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, like I've already shown the consistency of crew battles. I used the numerous amounts of time the Straw Hat Pirates fight, and I even used the real life contextualization of how the flashback is with God Valley. Roger's literally fighting the whole entire crew, not just Rocks himself. So if crew battles are always consistent and always constant, this it's already proving him saying he's referring to 1v1, like it's literally already put into question. Like I
Yeah,
even
wait,
addressed, I
Jen,
even said that 1v1s are some things are portrayed on a higher level pedestal. Like this never happened.
No. It's not in question. The reason why it's not in question is he's not referring to consistency of battles. Like I said, I think that you proved that the consistency of battles actually favors your position. He's using consistency for titles specifically, and then he clarified what he meant by titles. What he meant by titles are basically just going to be, okay, a statement that says, oh, you're the strongest X, like you're the strongest creature, for example, or you're the strongest swordsman.
Yeah, no, I put that in the question too. I literally said that like Rox's title is referring to his crew. That's the reason why he's the greatest. I've been there. You said this. It's not. He's not actually given like a quote unquote silhouette title like the strongest swordsman. That's never happened. Never before his name. Never.
Okay, so if you asked Lucas to prove it, I don't think he ever gave an argument. Then I think that you would win. But I'll just have to look over it in the recording. Okay.
What exactly did he say that he said? Just to be clear, because I was.
No, he's saying that when you made that inductive claim, because I did not hear an argument from you, Lucas. I thought you just slipped something in. He said that he asked you to prove it, and then you just didn't give an argument, which I would agree with that because I didn't hear any reasoning behind it. So
prove what exactly?
To prove that Rox had like a title just like Whitebeard in them, because I literally said no. Like every time Rox talked about it's because of his crew, nothing else.
I just mentioned that what I meant by titles is how they're
stated.
Wait.
Lucas, Jen is saying that he put that into question, so I'm just gonna have to rewatch that part specifically.
Rewatch that.
Yeah, okay. Just save the rec then, or no, don't save it. Like, just Jen can go on with his skilling, I guess.
Jen, you can just go on with it.
Okay. You know, there's like a little scene like where Garp shows up, and they basically imply that Garp can fight Rogers and Rock's crew together, right?
Can you show that?
Yeah, I got you. So essentially, what happens is there's a pincer attack. Coming from Roger and Rocks, like basically from the Marines' perspective. Oh my God! Like these two crews teamed up, we're getting fucked up, right? What we're gonna do? Garp comes, literally presses them, and they're all like, "Oh yeah, we're saved. We have reinforcements. Not that we need more reinforcements. Garp's unit's not enough. They're just saved because the Garp is here." Okay, so the implication is that Garp can fight off Roger and Rock's crew.
Okay, so why are their opinion? Okay, first off, right? Why are their opinion? Because there's actually two rebuttals. I just realized. First off, why are the opinions of these Marines valid to understanding like how Garp would be able to contest with them? Why are they valid in thinking that Garp would be able to beat like Rox and Rogers' crews?
Yeah, the reason why I would consider them as valid because the way I read manga, anime, or watch shows in general is I'm looking at it from perspectives where we don't know anything. So the author is going to put some symbolism in the text to showcase the intention of how do you want us to see the world. So obviously, if the author wants to be informative and talk about and portraying like power, knowledge, et cetera, whatever type of theme or format they want to do it, and this statement is going to just showcase that. So yes, I'm going to just take that face value, considering the authors just want to prove us and show us things on face value.
So, wait, did you send? I mean, he may have not asked you for it. I just want to see it like for context as the judge.
The scan? It's in scan.
Yeah. Oh yeah, let me check it out. Hold up. Okay. Now y'all can go.
Okay, let me just refute what Jen said. So, first off, it's not really a disagreement of what's being stated face value. What's being stated face value is the fact that they believe that he can beat them. I agree. But what's different is what's being presented, right? I don't disagree with the fact that the author is trying to, give a message to the readers. But the message could be, I don't see why your message is objective. It could just easily be the fact, right? That these Marines have such confidence in Garp's strength that they glaze him to the extent that he can beat them. That has no credence to the fact that they're actually objectively correct. So, all that's really being presented here, what's face value being presented here, is the fact that it's just random guys who are saying this. What's face value being said, we agree with, but what's being presented is that it's fodder, right? So the message could just as easily be the fact that they're just, untruthfully glazing him rather than being objectively correct in the matter.
Wait, yeah, I don't really care if it's fodder. You would agree, even normal people, in One Piece, tells us things about the world, correct? We're not supposed to be high up nobility. Okay, so look, that, and even in other manga and anime, it's going to be the same trope there. More people tell you about this thing. For example, isekais. You wouldn't just say, oh, it's isekai. This person's a low. It's not like a crazy royalty member. We shouldn't trust him. No, you would accept that shit, right? So I don't really think them being fodder really puts the the charitability into question there, or the parsimony checking the question. I think that's just like going to be shows why your position fails in parsimony there. And then on top of that, again, look, Roger and Garp are shown to be startled and frightened by the power displayed there. So look, if it's already having some pre-established context that this power is already threatening, and then it's established on top of that that they're saved and they no longer need more people, like this is enough. I think it's already reasonable enough to accept this at face value, man.
Okay.
With my other priors as well.
Yeah, let me read that then. I don't see how my interp would fail in parsimony. I also don't see like how I'm not already explained how I'm taking at face value. Additionally, my like them being fodder wasn't supposed to like definitively. Or could you mute yourself real quick? Them being fodder wasn't supposed to definitively prove that they didn't know what they were talking about. It just calls into question, right? Because I'm basically saying, do they actually have like enough data to go off the fact that they should objectively know how Garp and Rocks fight, or are they just assuming so? Um, so that's my point, right? Like it calls it into question because we don't know what they've experienced if they have enough of a valid basis to be saying this shit. And at the same time, with the not Garp, with Roger and Rox's reaction, I don't really think it portrays what you think it portrays. I just think it portrays that Garp is strong and that they're like confused, right? I don't see a likelihood increaser to them actually being shocked that like Garp can come and beat them up, rather than just being confused why there's a sudden explosion of hockey because they don't know who's like a different presence. They didn't know Garp was on here at this point. They just knew it was like there were two crews, so the arrival of someone else who's strong but not necessarily above them, especially combined, is going to surprise them. I don't see the likelihood increase for that.
Yeah, I just think that matters. You understand these people fight with they have observation hockey, correct? So I think by default they are going to be able to sense somebody strong coming. So I think when we have these things like question marks and exclamation points, and not just pure question marks, right? Like I think you would have a stronger argument with pure question marks, but I think because they also have exclamation marks as well, that's going to imply some what we call it, some like high stakes surprise, like what the fuck, like this is crazy strong, like this whole is supposed to be exaggerated type of shit. So because of that, we again, like I'm gonna restate it, observation hockey, people can literally sense strength. And the whole point of this was to showcase strength. Again, we have a strong feat. We have everybody like, oh my god, what the fuck, all around. And then Garp has a statement of his strength being enough. Like I think it's pretty consistent that this entire panel is referencing strength, man. Your argument really just doesn't track on to the context, in my opinion.
Yeah. Let me refute that real quick. So first off, right, them being like, I never disagree that it's not about strength, right? For example, I just argue that the narrative could just be that Garp is strong enough so that the Marines think he can beat them without it necessarily being entailed in reality, right? But they just know that he's really strong, so they have like confidence in him. And now with Garp not Garp, with Rox and Roger's reactions, yes, it's a big surprise, but it doesn't necessarily entail that it's a threat to them. They could just be really surprised someone of Garp's level is there because they didn't expect someone besides their own two crews of that strength to be there without that strength necessarily being able to beat them up. And even if a Garp was in a threat to some way to both of them, it wouldn't necessarily have to be to them individually. For example, Garp could just be beating on certain Rock's pirates, like, I don't know, fucking Silver Axe or Shaggy. Maybe Shaggy too, because they do want to protect Shaggy. But like people like Shaggy could be in danger. Someone like the less strong people in the Roger and Rox pirates could be in danger. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a threat to themselves, but rather just a threat to their crews. Because obviously, as you know,
yeah, I'm gonna use that point against you to just reinforce the Garp shit. So yes, when Garp is showing the fight, he's showing the Garp the top people there. He goes to Kaido, Big Mom, and Whitebeard. He has them running. Now, obviously, I can agree. There's an interpretation in there to where they have to do their stuff quickly and get their treasures. I can grant that. I'm not a rap. I know that context is there, but also what is established is that they cannot actually fight him and beat him quickly. Garp is too strong for them to actually take out in an effective manner, even if they did jump him. So if that's the case, that's going to apply some relativity in a 3v1. Obviously, it might imply some overall more relativity since he's doing a 3v1 and like a 1v3 in the opposite way. So if that's the case, like that's just adding on to more that Garp is enough. He can fight even in these outnumbered standards. Mind you, that same kind of 1v1 is directly stated he can fight on par with Rocks. I think Oshir or Future, can you send a scan to where I think it's when Roger talks about beating up Harold and like Rocks puts him in check, and then they're really clarifying like, yo, y'all gotta stop because if y'all let loose fighting, it can go on and destroy the island. So if that's already been established there, like I just don't see an argument for why
Okay,
Rox
so
wins.
let me first address this point, and I can address the other one relating to the other scan when it's sent. Okay, is that all
Mm-hmm.
right? I just want to address the scan that you sent here first. So this scan, right? I don't disagree that it doesn't imply, like, it does imply relativity between Whitebeard, Big Mom, and Kaido and Garp. Obviously, as we can agree, it doesn't like confirm that Garp would actually beat these guys. Rather than it just confirms that it would be like a drawn out battle to the extent that they don't want that. Now the problem is, first off, right? This doesn't even like get Garp definitively above, say, Whitebeard, because just not being able to beat, because first off, we don't know the gap between Whitebeard and Big Mom and Kaido, right? They could be like pretty low to the extent where like Big Mom and Kaido aren't really giving him a big boost. We know Big Mom can't even fucking hurt Garp. So in that case, right, it could be like adding a 10 with like a bunch
No,
of
but it's
fucking
still
twos.
it's still
And
gonna be a
even if
higher
it,
assertion. You don't understand that, right?
how's it gonna be a higher assertion?
It's still regardless going to come down to a 3v1, right? And look at it's like even if you want to argue Big Mom isn't going to be that difficult a threat, she still could be like used as like a bodyguard, help extra reactions for Whitebeard, etc. etc. Like it's just more parsimonious. Like it just makes it to more situations. Garp is going to be a better combatant. Like that just follows.
Better combatant than like all three of them.
Then those three individually as well. Yes,
No, because there's nothing that like
I
portrays
just
all
did.
that's
I just
portrayed and
showed it
all
to
that's
you. Like
stated.
3v1.
One second, let me finish. Let me finish. I don't see how it would be more parsimonious because what like assumptions am I adding here? You're making the assumption that just because they would struggle in a 3v1 that he'd beat all three of them individually, which all I'm assuming is that that doesn't necessarily like that it wouldn't actually mean that necessarily.
What the fuck?
You're just assuming that doesn't
Wait,
necessarily.
listen. If we're just saying the only father person in this group is Big Mom, that means that if two strong people jumped someone, you would assume two strong or one strong. But the fact that two strong or one strong isn't happening to that degree, obviously we can make this. There's a strong inductive case that Garp is strong individually. Like that just makes more. That makes more sense. More parsimonious, man. Like
How's it gonna be an inductive
uh,
case? How's it gonna be literally explain like
do you
you're not
okay? Like
making
what
we're not making
do
like
you
any
think like 1v100 is harder than 1v99, right?
yeah.
Okay, okay. And you would say the one person if they won that fight is stronger because they went through more odds and still came out victorious, correct? Okay, so on the same type of degree, if the guy in the 1v100 fought and almost beat these 100 people, let's say he stopped at two of them niggas, he took a 98 straight. That would still show the strong evidence that he's above them 1v1.
No, like I don't see how them being
How, what?
comparable.
D,
Let
you
me
took out
finish
98
though.
of them. What are
Holy
you talking
shit.
about?
Wait,
What
wait,
is that?
wait,
The,
wait, wait,
what are you
wait, wait,
talking
wait, wait,
about? Oh
wait,
my god.
wait. Fucking bitch, bro. Respectfully, my bad. Like you keep fucking screaming. I'm trying to explain here, man. Listen. Okay. What I mean to say, I might have misheard you. So let's just get this clear. If one guy beats up like 20 guys, right? Fucking like number of plural guys, right? Then yes, I would agree that he's above them individually. But if you were just trying to say if he like stalls them or is able to like not get beat the fuck up instantly out of them, then no, I don't see how there'd be an inductive case or any added assumptions because all I'm assuming is that they wouldn't necessarily put him above them individually. You're just assuming that it would by virtue, but there's no added credence to your argument. I can agree it's relativity because there would inherently need to be like some speed gaps so he doesn't get blitzed in one shot, shit like that, right? But there's no like inductive. It's just because you're adding more fighters, right? Adding more fighters doesn't necessarily entail that the gap of like adding another fighter is just gonna have to be like remotely comparable enough, especially if we have evidence of Big Mom being
Uh,
fodder to Garp, is gonna
yeah,
be
I'm
comparable
not gonna
enough
lie. Like
to like
I think the
significantly
confirmation of Big Mom
divide
being
it.
part of Garp leads more credence to as to why Garp is presented as a strong figure on this island that can protect it. I think just adding more to the narrative, man. I'm not gonna lie.
That that assumes that Big Mom is comparable enough to people like Whitebeard, Rocks, and Garp.
Do you
I mean,
not
not
think she
Whitebeard,
is?
Rocks, and Garp. Whitebeard, Rock,
Even in the panel, like when she's being portrayed, like she's held in the same regard as Big Whitebeard and Kyle, even in the current day. Like they're even when they talk about them in the past too, she stated in the same thing. Like they say, Big Mom as a notable figure. Like why do you think she's always with them? Because she's notable just like them.
I think she can be on the same tier of power in the sense that like she's so strong that she's of like the top echelon, but that doesn't mean within that top echelon
I think for the most part they're relative.
Like
yes,
even like
I do actually think that. I mean, name me an example.
My problem is
who's
that
not relative? Who's not relative? Give me an example.
1 second. My problem is that I'm not even making the claim.
Nah, you did just say that. You said like I don't think people in the top echelon have to be relative. Like I'm like,
I
okay, give me an
didn't say
example.
I think that. I just think that it could be the case, right? It's
Bro.
just
Just give me an example.
Lucas,
Just give me an example, Lucas. Give me an example. Who's somebody considered top echelon? Just give me an example. Who you think somebody's considered top
what I'm
echelon?
saying, and I'm trying to correct what you're understanding, and you're just cutting me off. Like I'm not.
Look, you don't have an argument. It's cool. You don't have an argument. It's fine.
I'm trying to tell you my argument, bro. Just let me fucking finish. I'm not gonna cut you off. I
Yo,
never cut you off.
Ghetto, just let him speak, bro. I don't want to moderate, bro. Just let him speak.
Listen. I'm gonna be quick here, right? All I'm saying is that it's just as likely that the whole like speaking of the three in the same regard, Whitebeard, Big Mom, and Kaido, is just as likely that they're in the same tier of power in the sense of how they like stand atop the rest of the world, rather than just being relative in power. I just don't know why it's more likely that they're actually speaking of these three in the same sense to say that they're all on the same level, rather than just like they're all top tiers. Most people would fucking die trying to fight them. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, you already granted like some of the Whitebeard shit. I think obviously you'd agree the Kaido shit goes through too. Like, you called him strong. Like, I just posted a scan with the rocks.
You mean they call him when they call Kaido the strongest creature? Like, granting that being true?
Yeah, I mean that too. Also, like I posted the rock shit. Like he can take on rocks.
Before we go to that panel, I also want to like say about the 3v1 panel with Garp and Big Mom Kaido Roger. I mean, not Roger, Whitebeard. Just be clear, you said earlier that this portrays the underlying narrative before that Garp can solo the fucking Rocks and Roger pirates. How does that portray that when, first off, Rocks and Roger themselves aren't present along with the rest of the Rocks and Roger pirates? These are merely three of one of their crews.
Wait, I'm confused on why that would attack the argument. Like the whole point is that he's gonna ransack the whole island until he catches them. Like, do you think do you think he'd be everywhere at once? Like, hell no. Like, that's not a defeater. That's not a defeater.
Wait, one sec, Jen. Let me explain why it's a defeater. Because if three, obviously, of a total of two fucking crews is not going to be referenced, it's not going to represent the total combat power of said crews, then it doesn't establish any narrative, because what applies to merely three people of a crew is not necessarily going to apply. In fact, I'll go a step further in saying that if Rocks and Roger are both here, right, at the same time, we know Roger and Rocks are at the very least relative, if not above Whitebeard at this point, and Garp is relative to Whitebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom. If you have two people on Whitebeard's level, in addition to everyone else,
I think Garp is stronger than them. That's the whole entire point. Look.
I'm saying Whitebeard. I'm saying Rocks and Roger are on the same level, if not stronger than Whitebeard. All right, so you add two.
No, I don't think so.
You don't agree with that?
No, I think it goes like Garp, Roger, Whitebeard, Rocks, Kaido, Big Mom.
You don't even think they're okay. Wait, just be clear. You don't even think they're relative.
You guys are reaching a time limit, bro. You got 3 minutes left.
3 minutes left. It's crazy.
Okay, well, first off, right?
If you guys want, you guys can debate until 55 if Isaac doesn't have enough information.
Isaac, you're okay with extending it to 55 to 12 minutes?
Isaac, have you heard enough, Isaac? Because I think like I said what I need to say for real.
I'm not gonna lie. The second point, I wasn't really listening to it like that. Can y'all give conclusions?
Sure, we can.
Okay. Yeah. You. I don't care who goes first. It doesn't really matter to me.
Jim said a scan 340. Do I have to like?
It's just a Roger. It's just a Roger rock shit. Not Roger. Kaido rock shit. You can read it if you want. Then.
Well, like okay.
Yeah. Jen, give your conclusion. I guess.
Okay, let me go first. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I win the second point. Considering that, look, I've already established how like in the panel I posted, there's going to be underlying context portraying two things. One that Garp is just going to be stronger than these people, and that obviously they want to fight because they can do other stuff. I think it's fine for two things to be shown in the panel at once. I explained how the parsimony would showcase this as well with the examples of the soldiers. how generally you would say that the person with less people is gonna have a harder fight. Therefore, if they win or do good, goes down as them being higher. I think I've already proven that these characters are just relative. Like I don't really see an issue with that. Um, and because of this, like I just think that because of that, Garp is going to be confirmed as like this top one person. Exactly why like he can come in and like, oh, you're received. He tried to make some last minute defeater talking about something like, oh, it only shows these three, so it doesn't prove a thing. But I'm like, yeah, like Garp is not omnipresent. Like he can't be everywhere at once. So of course he's going to fight some people after he beats them. He's going to move on. So like I don't think that's a defeater. That's literally is a non-argument, and that's pretty much it.
Alright, I'll go with my conclusion then. Jin never really proved the fact that the Marines' knowledge was equitable enough to say that they'd be valid in saying that Garp is strong enough to take them on. He tried pulling like a narrative thing, saying that the narrative is trying to present things. I agree they can be just as likely that they're just trying to present Garp as strong so that the Marines have confidence in them without the confidence necessarily being like based in reality. And then he tried to bring up the fact that we have like an implication of him being able to like go toe to toe with three people in the Rocks Pirates, right? Which I just said first off, right? Being able to keep up relatively with these guys does not necessarily mean that he's actually above them individually. I don't see how it fails in parsimony because it's just one assumption on each end to have assumed that Garp would have won or lost that interaction. And at the same time, there's not really an inductive case because even though adding one person to the extra like amount that Garp has to fight wouldn't necessarily prove in any way that it would be significant enough to say that Garp being able to do good against them raises the chance from just doing good and losing to like beating them. There's just no like precedent for that. At the same time, I did tell him right that it's only three people, so a narrative because we know that adding Rox and Roger, no matter what strength you think they are, would raise the combat power, and the rest of the crew would raise the combat power. Then these two being not of equal combat power just means that what's a narrative implication for these three would not necessarily be a narrative implication for the entire fucking two crews. So his argument just falls apart there because it's based on the three people representing the entire fucking crew, but we know they're not the same power. So
Yeah, and then you're also calling into question, if I heard correctly, if those three people link back to Rocks, correct?
no, I just said that we argued about like if Rox and Roger are relative to Whitebeard, but I just said that they're not of the same combat power, no matter how much you think, no matter what you think the relative gap between them is, right? So I'm just saying if the combat power is unquantifiably higher when you add in these people, then like you can't establish a narrative connection between these two groups.
Okay, well, this is kind of like confusing to think about, or not really, but it's just like I feel like the first problem is I'm not too sure if Jin is using parsimony correctly, but what he did say when he was bringing up his parsimony point, I think it's like still relevant. What he said is that okay, well, if you have these additive people on, it just like trivially makes it harder to fight, pretty much, like or easier to fight. Sorry, yeah, it makes it easier to fight for the team that has these additive people. So if it is established that the two teams are relative, and then one team has one person, while the other team is three, then what he's trying to say from there is it just makes it more likely that individually the one guy is stronger than them individually, pretty much. That's and is there any like problem with them being relative?
I did post Rocks equal relative to Kaido as well. I did post
Wait,
that.
we're just
Yeah,
talking
okay.
about.
And they never went over that, so if that's uncontested as well. It sounds like Gen 1, but maybe I missed
Yeah,
something. What do you think?
when it comes to that scan, right? I said conclusion. We can just ignore that scan. We're just talking about this one, like the 3v1 scan with Garp and the
Yeah,
other
okay, so
dude.
then okay, so what were your other contentions to the whole 3v1 thing then? Like
Well, I mean, besides that, it was just the fact that, right, like as I said earlier, if there's an unquantifiable gap between adding in the entirety of the two crews, which is he was trying to connect it back to the entirety of the two crews, and just these three, then you can't establish the same narrative connection, right? Because what would make more sense for the Garpin 3v1 wouldn't necessarily make sense when you add in all two crews, because just an unquantifiable gap between them.
I mean, I think I've already established that because I'm like, Garp
wait,
controls
repeat the whole
consistent.
crew thing again. Wait, I gotta hear Lucas's thing. I
Yeah,
don't see
but
how. Yeah, what's the whole crew thing, Lucas?
Basically, right, he was trying to say that Garp implied to be able to beat the three people, Whitebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom, implies that he'd be able to beat both crews at the same time. So I'm saying, right, if there's an unquantifiable gap between just these three and adding the entirety of both crews, then what, like any narrative connection between these two wouldn't necessarily, like any
Well,
narrative
Lucas, hanging
connection
out
between.
that doesn't even matter. The reason why that doesn't even matter is like, let's say that Jin doesn't prove that. He already established, and then you said that you never contested it because of the time limit. That okay, well, Kaido is just gonna be like scaling to rocks. So if that's the case, then even if it only applies to the three people, his scaling chain just gets his character over rocks. So I
I
don't see why
thought
it matters.
I told that when we said we can go to conclusions, right? I said we can go to conclusions about this scan, and we just ignored the other scan, the Kaido thing.
Isaac, this point doesn't even address it. Like my entire point is that the narrative doesn't change for how Garp is presented. He's a strong force that can stop these people. like all he's conceding to
I
is
told
that
you that the
it
narrative is
requires
equally
some time to
possible.
win. Like how's that defeat
I just
anything?
told you that the narrative
Okay.
is equally possible. It's just portraying Garp
Wait,
as
listen,
just
listen.
a.
I'll look over rec because I had to like do the dishes. Off this first point, or off the second point, it sounded like Jin was winning. In the first one, like I didn't get like a full scope of the point, but it sounded like Lucas had the slight edge there. I would just have to go over rec though. So just like save it, okay?
All right.
Yeah, and then here's the thing. Let's say that y'all both get your points through. Lucas would win because